you've contributed this of your own money, but look how much HMRC's put on top. Here's a benefit of having pensions. Those together, how are they growing for your long-term savings plan?
Today, I'm joined by Martin Parzonka, who is Senior Product Manager at PensionBee. This is a really exciting proposition, and we're really excited to learn a bit more about how it works, both in the presentation layer and a little bit more in the back end as well. How are you doing today?
I'm well. And so PensionBee is an online pension provider. The intent of us is to amalgamate or consolidate various disparate pension pots that people have throughout their career. So we know that people in the UK landscape can have up to, or average 11 pension pots throughout their career. We've been predominantly a web-based product, and we do have an app now that is, it was created as an add-on for existing customers. And in having it out there in the wild, as it were, we're finding that people sort of expect fintechs to have apps. They're going to the App Store and saying, hey, where are you guys? So we're now shifting to really building that out and having a sign-up flow in the app to make it usable for people just to sign up straight from the App Store.
Yeah.
Other things we're working on, looking at making our analytics a bit more robust. But the idea is to help people understand the benefit of having a pension, that it's a long-term savings product. And we really want to sort of alleviate the concerns that people have about pensions in the market. It's a scary product that's been around for ages, not everyone has one, and what does it mean, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. So we really want to pull down those barriers. You can probably pick from the accent, I'm Australian. I had a career over a decade in an insurance company back home, and I thought, you know what, I'm done being in corporate over this, don't want to wear a suit anymore. Came to the other side of the world, thought I'll just do whatever. Funnily enough, I'm back in financial services, but it's a very, very different experience. I mean, I'm here in shorts, so I can roll into the office like this. The vibe is very, very different, and it's something, we're disrupting those old legacy players like I used to work for, so it's quite exciting.
Yeah.
So coming into PensionBee as a beekeeper, we call it, so that's effectively an account manager, customer service team, and so did that for a year and sort of realised I quite like the product. I'm really bought into it, quite enjoy the project aspect of things as well, so I thought, cool, this is the place to be, this is the place to develop my career. So from there, sort of progressed into the product role, got brought into that function, and here we are.
Could you touch a little bit on, from your experience, what the traditional experience would have been like for someone with their pensions, and how do you think this is changing from with disruption?
Yeah, how it's changing, it's becoming more transparent, that's what we try to do. So by saying that, I'm implying that it wasn't transparent previously, and that's much the case. Legacy providers are very paper-based. Mm-hmm. They may send an annual statement to, or not may, they will send you an annual statement annually, and you'll see performance snapshot in time. And people don't really understand what's going on because it's such a low-touch, sporadic thing. So they don't understand the fee structures, they don't understand the performance or what they're getting or not getting out of their pension. And we found that the service probably wasn't there as well because it is a low touch thing. People don't really need to interact with their pensions or didn't need to interact with their pensions so much.
Yeah.
And that was the gap. It's realising that there's a lack of understanding there. And it's a really cumbersome, slow process to deal with providers.
Sure.
The story of why PensionBee started was our CEO, Romy, tried to move a workplace pension and found it really, really difficult, very paper-based, and she's like, there's got to be a better way.
Yeah.
And that's where we sort of came to be.
Who is PensionBee's target audience? Who are you going after? And is there a sort of an age demographic or a cohort?
We want everyone. That sounds a bit flippant, but the reality is that 65% of our customer base is between 30 and 55.
Really? Okay.
And they're the ones that most benefit from having a product like this because they've got disparate pension pots all over the place.
Yeah, definitely.
But either side of that, the rest of our customer split is quite equal. Either side of that, young people we want to target, they're tech savvy, all this sort of stuff. And we want people of that age bracket to really engage with a product like this.
Yeah.
That's why we have the app now and all that sort of stuff. And really understand that this is not a scary product and you need to really plan for your long-term future.
Yeah.
And on the other side of that, we have older people who are ready to maybe draw down. So we have a drawdown product as well, and we make it really easy for them to be able to come in and draw down their consolidated pension with us.
Is that the kind of the market that you were going after initially, or were you going after a different one and did it change? How did it develop?
Not necessarily. I mean, I think, well, yeah. It was people that had pensions or that would have several pension pots. So the marketing effort, the way the product felt, and being a fintech, it probably skewed a little bit younger. But the reality is that they're not always the people that you need to help out.
For sure.
It is this older cohort.
Yeah.
We did some focus groups actually with an external provider that helped us along with that, and we interviewed customers that were above 45. And it sort of challenged our perception about what retirement meant. So you can draw down now at 55, state pension 67. And we thought, when you get into 45, 50, etc., you're probably thinking about retirement maybe, and how to wind down.
Yeah.
And the reality is that's not the case. No one does a hard stop anymore. We're all going to be working till we're in our 70s or whatever. So it's really changed our focus on how we message customers in this age group and get them to engage with financial products in general, not just pensions, right? But they're like, they need assistance across the board.
Yeah.
And it's really understanding their pain points and saying, well, yes, we're not doing all the financial products, but we're doing a very core part of what you're going to be using as your whole holistic financial life.
Yeah. There must be a long-term sort of, you try and think in terms of long-term relationships with people.
Exactly. Yeah.
Much more so than any other provider would with any other sort of type of retail product or whatever. This is something which you've got to think about for 50 years or something.
Yeah.
So I guess that presents its own challenges. Anything in particular that you can think of?
Messaging, understanding. One of the things we pride ourselves on is clarity of information. We want to remove all jargon. Things as subtle as fund manager being called a money manager. Because not everyone appreciates what a fund is or an asset manager.
Yeah, for sure.
But they appreciate the word money.
Yeah.
So it's having that nuance in language to get people to really understand what we're offering. And it's also being able to message to people at various age groups. So I mentioned, make that comment that people appreciate that simplistic language. But on the other hand, you do have customers that are like, is this too simple? Like, is this a Mickey Mouse sort of company? And it's helping them, or alleviating those concerns with engaging with them properly and having a whole swathe of information on the website. Yeah. Saying we're not just, we're experienced. Like, this is a whole bunch of stuff we really know. Yeah. We partner with large money managers. There's experience in the room.
What would you describe as a similar product, and kind of what sets you apart from those guys?
Look, there are other players in the market that are coming online with new pension products, like in the fintech space as well. There are obviously the incumbents who are also, you'll see ads saying they can consolidate, and everyone can, well not everyone, but consolidation can happen elsewhere. But the differentiator is that we make it easy. I mentioned the language, I mentioned it's accessibility actually is the key thing. Accessibility to language and understanding what we do, and pensions in general, accessibility in terms of an online service, and accessibility in terms of our actual service structure. So we have a really dedicated service model with account managers, dedicated account manager or beekeeper for the customers. Yeah. That they have a contact for the life of their time with us. We've got a Trustpilot score of 9.2. Like we're very, very proud of this, and we're very adamant to keep it there. Like we really spend a lot of time and investment in our service structure. We do have, I mentioned Remy before, so CEO, co-founder, CTO Jonathan, co-founder, drive a lot of the product strategy still. But there's also Jasper, our CMO, quite heavily involved. And then we have in the product function itself, we have a CX research insights specialist. We have an amazing designer who, the term beautiful I think is overused in fintech a little bit, but like it's genuinely nice to look at our stuff, and I really appreciate the work he's doing there. And we've actually just doubled our design function this week, so we're really happy with that. We've got 2 now, so we're really excited.
Very good.
So that's the core function, and then from there we have we sort of changed things up a little bit recently, where we found we were running projects, sort of pulling resources from the various functional teams. So you'd have developers here, you'd have operations here, etc. You pull them together and say you're working on this now, and that worked for a long time. But we sort of realised that it might be better to bring together cross-functional teams that work towards a goal. Okay. So there's still business objectives, but you set that objective, and the team forms around that, and they run their own ship. They're quite autonomous, and pick out of their backlog what they're going to work on next, and you have your developer working with your ops person, etc. Like further out the course of that goal. I think it's the Spotify model sort of thing,
Okay.
Having those agile teams that are also autonomous but cross-functional.
What's the kind of general aim? Is there a North Star metric there for you?
Our mission is to make pensions simple, engaging, and get people to have a happy retirement. That is, as simple as that. We want people to to engage with the product, to engage with the industry, to understand what they're investing in, and have them understand that it's going to help them in the long term, and we want them to be happy when they retire. It's no good hearing stories, people retire and have to live on baked beans on toast. It's not great, and we want to be able to really alleviate that in the market.
Yeah, for sure. And in terms of the actual product, the most important thing for you guys is to keep channeling traffic through your website, or is it to go via the app route, or what's the main thing for you?
So yeah, it's interesting. The reason for the web being the primary focus initially was, as much as in millennial world we like to think that everything's done on apps and everyone's just focused on apps. The reality is you don't research financial products in the App Store. You'll be going to Google and saying, what is a good pension provider? Or where is a good savings account? And it's having the content on our site to allow people to find that and understand what the product is. And then obviously you want to have the web-based service there when they hit the site. So the web primary focus, but now it is sort of understanding that people, fintech, people do expect an app. And also, as I mentioned before, accessibility. People do want to have just an app on their phone that they can engage with. So we built it out as an existing customer tool, value add, so you can just access it quite easily. But we're understanding now that people do go to the App Store to look for us. And it's actually quite an interesting challenge that, I make the comment about searching for pension products, you do it online, but because we will have people going to the App Store, it's making sure that we're very descriptive in our product spec on the products page in the App Stores. Do people read those? Questionable. So it's then also having the onboarding screens being quite informative.
You've got to really find a way to stand out on there, don't you? Really
exactly,
shout.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you a few questions about partnerships. So how does this work from a sort of, so I guess you're working with people like Legal & General and BlackRock and that kind of stuff. Are they very much things that are these partnerships which needed to be forged, and how do they work, and how do you maintain that relationship and that kind of thing? So
the reason for these partners is when the company started looking in the market and saying who are the biggest asset managers. And then you've got BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street. Vanguard, I think at the time, didn't have a UK offering, so BlackRock, State Street. And it's having those experienced players in the market that we can say to our customers, yes, we're brand new, but these guys have experience. Your money is looked after by experienced hands. And from there, Legal & General, we wanted to get on board with the ESG offerings, and Legal & General were quite hot in that space.
So what is the ESG offering?
So we have a fund, Future World. And the intent of that fund is to invest in companies that are forging towards a carbon neutral economy. And Legal & General have a range of knowledge in this space, and they'll buy their ways onto boards of companies that might be questionable about how their performance in the ESG space, and they influence from within. And use their clout as institutional investors to suggest how they should be performing their business.
Right. I was wondering if there's anything specific that happens on your app, how that works for you guys. You mentioned it a few times now. It must be quite an important part of the process.
Yeah. I mean, that's the bread and butter, the consolidation part. Customer comes, signs up, we ask them, basic questions about themselves, to form KYC, all this sort of stuff. And then we ask them about the existing pensions they have. And it's as simple as, who is your provider? And that's it. If you've got the policy number, great. If you know the value of the fund you're expecting, even better. But it's as easy as, who's the provider or providers. Tell us who they are. Even the employer. If the customer doesn't know who they used, they can say they worked for XYZ employer between the years of 2004, 2006, whatever. Check our database. That employee used this provider at that time. Ping off information request. Is there a pension here? Comes back. Yeah, there is. And we go through the transfer process, which varies between different providers.
Well, I guess we'll kick off now looking at the onboarding flow. We click on the button and then signing up with first name, legal surname. There is, do you just want to pick up where you were there? So we've got email address being added in here. These are just like rudimentary things, sort of basic get to know your customer type situation here.
So the legal first name is an interesting one because it's not really a real term. It's customers would sign up with nicknames and stuff, and existing providers would be like,
freaking out.
Doesn't match.
And just to clarify, this is, as we were mentioning before, this is a web-based activity, and they're working currently on the app. So what we've got here is a mobile optimized web page. And then we can kind of roll through to the next stage. You see, nice to see you've got that kind of ever-present chat icon in the bottom right, should you run into trouble. And then this is what you were talking about before, is add your pension provider. Seems pretty sort of like, as we were mentioning before, real simple, not too much information asked of the user. I mean, I would imagine there is times where you've been asked by companies, for example, to provide information, and you're like, God, I have no idea, and then you're sort of freaking out. But I guess nice use of language as well here, like your best guess. Knowing that there are parameters which you can sort of give you a good chance to start looking at. That seems like a really useful way of clearing the cognitive load from the user.
Yeah.
So the sign.
So this stuff as well, it's quite interesting. Most people are quite good with this, the signature on an electronic form.
Yeah.
We do have some customers that are saying, oh, do I need to sign something in physical? And the reality is, no, we want to make it simple.
Yeah. And then we're in the Beehive now. So touched on this a little bit before. The idea of being supported, and then we can see a percentage of the completion of our pension being moved over.
So this is to gamify the information that's provided to us.
Yes.
So it is a tricky messaging challenge here, because you make the comment, it's percentage moved over. It's actually percentage of what you've told us that helps us engage with the existing provider to get that information.
Interesting. Yes.
So we've actually, what we're looking at now is a new field to capture further details. So previous names, when people get married and if they change their surname, that is a challenge because they may not have updated it with their existing provider. So we need to capture that detail so we know which pension we're dealing with.
Yeah, for sure. And then the ability to switch as well. So like we've entered that data and now we can view plans. More specific questions about KYC and the sort of requirements there. Can you tell us a bit more about that and what's needed at this stage?
Yeah, so it's all electronic. We use a third-party supplier on Fido to provide our KYC service. So based on the customer's age, name, and I think its address, it'll either come back with a positive or negative. If it's positive, great, the record's updated, and the beekeeper proceeds with contacting and getting the process moving, contacting existing providers.
Yeah.
If it fails, depending on the failure reason, the customer's able to self-serve. So if they fail because of their address, they can, in their Beehive, be presented with an option to trigger a letter that gets sent to them to the address they've told us about with a unique code, and then they enter that code to say, yep, I got the letter, this is where I live. If it's a date of birth name mismatch, they can upload ID documents.
Yeah, sure. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about the idea of cognitive load, which you've not got a great deal of requirement here, so you can keep it quite light. And was there anything that you were thinking about specifically when you were building out that to kind of make sure you're not fatiguing people?
Yeah, it's a never-ending battle. It's how little is too little. It's a very fast sign-up journey, and as I mentioned, all you have to do is provide the employer name or provider name. Yeah. And that can come with its own challenges, where we don't know enough about the policy, and the provider has very many broad branches or different departments internally. Yeah. And it's like how to navigate them for us navigating them to get the right information out, which is not the customer's problem. That's what we do. That's our service. Yeah. But then you have customers sometimes that are perplexed by how quick it is. They're like, well, where do I put the policy number? The ones that do have it, and so. You can put it in when you're in the Beehive, but up front, we don't need it. It's as simple as that.
So transferring the money over from your previous provider, or whatever that process is, you then got a process of, after the onboarding flow, you'll be waiting for the money to transfer.
Yeah. So it'll be a case of the existing provider says, yep, this is the policy, and if everything's okay, we trigger the transfer process. And it depends on who the provider is, whether or not we use a system there's a platform called Origo, which a lot of the industry signs up to. Right. And they've vetted providers in the industry to say, yep, they're legitimate, all this sort of stuff. And it's an electronic transfer protocol.
This is pension specific?
Yeah, it's pension specific. Okay. And it'll be, the SLA for them, I think, is 12 working days, but we try to do it in 10. Okay. And so, money is quite often transferred quite quickly, but then on the other side of it, you do have these other legacy companies that are a bit more difficult, let's say, and they use paper forms, and customers have to physically sign stuff. Ridiculous cases where they have to send an original birth certificate, nonsense like that. Yeah. So the industry is it's quite broad in that sense. Yeah. There are the players that do want to make it easy.
Yeah.
And there are some that are yet to come to the party.
Okay, and I guess you're just doing your best to kind of control what you can control,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah, and we guide the customer through the entire process as well. So when they have to deal with paper forms, we will get those forms for them where we can. Pre-fill what we can, send it to them and say this is exactly what you need to fill out to make it happen. And if there's other hurdles like the birth certificate thing, I mean, there's not much we can do about that, but we try and make it as easy for them as we can by explaining exactly how they need to present it and all this sort of stuff.
Okay. Have you ever found yourself being in a situation where you've had to like lobby or go to a different one of these providers and say, look, this is not working?
Yeah, PensionBee is very much vocal in the industry about making it faster and better.
Yeah.
I think there was an initiative to get something in place like the current account switch guarantee.
Oh, yeah.
Why can't we have a pension switch guarantee? We have a page in our site called the Robin Hood Index, where we sort of showcase those providers in the market that are a little bit slower or charge exit fees. So one of our services or value adds is that if there's an exit fee above £10, we'll flag it to the customer and say, this is there. Are you still okay to transfer? And we're very vocal about the fact that they shouldn't exist. Why should people be barricaded into who they're with? Why can't they choose, what they want to, who they want to be with?
Of course, yeah. I guess there's that market pressure on the current account providers now, with the way that retail market's generated, that maybe we're just sort of beginning with the pension market to see that happening. So they've had a bit of a head start. And then in this next episode, this next example, we're going to take a look at, really cool to have a prototype here, which is what the app onboarding flow will look like. So obviously very wireframed here. We've got a little carousel feature. Nice sort of big sort of hero like text to say exactly what you're going to be doing. And then progress bars, one question per page sort of format here, which I guess is a really good way of allowing you to get this information in real quickly. Yeah, and that's a challenge as well. So our web-based product is like 3 pages, but when you're on the move on the mobile, scrolling through questions is a bit cumbersome. So the one question per page. Is there anything a little different to the experience in that regard? No, we try to keep it as much the same as we can, other than, as I mentioned, and you've alluded to this one question per screen. Yeah, sure. That's the biggest change. Okay. And in terms of like introducing things like, here we've got we just finished it off with a loading screen here to say that we're kind of busy building away, and you've got a clear indication of the sort of what we can do once we're in there. Which a nice way of sort of building up to the idea of getting the user excited about using the product. Yeah. So I wanted to, I guess, is there anything specifically which excites you about using the app? Is there anything which it allows you to do that web just doesn't allow you to do? Yeah, it's an interesting learning experience. That we haven't done this yet, the sign up flow, and so it'll be cool to see what kind of customers do download and sign up via the app versus the website. Yeah. So it'll be interesting acquisition learning. In terms of doing things that we can't currently do, the most obvious thing, push notifications. Okay. So I mentioned exit fees before, and that we will notify a customer. So we currently notify them via email. Yeah. And if you're like me, you've got lots of emails in your inbox, and you just get lost in the noise, newsletters and all this sort of stuff. Yeah. So the ability to trigger a message in the app to a customer to say, hey, we've found this. Do you want to agree to it, yes or no, via the app? That's going to take out a lot of load on them by having to respond to an email, find it, all this sort of stuff. Hit a button, boom, on your way. Yeah. That's probably that's the big win. The biggest key, yeah. Cool. Yeah. And in the process of sort of building or thinking of starting to build this experience out, will there be anything different going on from a tech perspective? Obviously, I guess you'll have to build for app rather than build for website. So will be anything slightly different there? Yeah, no, every new feature now we're going to build. I might be digging myself into a hole, so let's do that. But we want to make it web and app at the same time. Okay. So we're currently looking at, I think it'll be released this week actually, an enhancement to our balance tab or transactions history. And that'll be released on both web and mobile, web and the native app. Okay. So at the same time? Yeah, or like a day apart. Right. But presumably they'll be built in different languages. Yeah. So you mentioned technical learning. So different language. React Native is what we use for the mobile app. Yeah, sure. So we're going to be engaging with a third party to help us along with that. We do have in-house mobile app or React Native experience, but for a big feature like this,
we felt it would be prudent to get some external help.
Yeah.
But that said, we expect there to be a lot of knowledge share. So one of our developers will be on the project from start to finish, and we're pairing with this external company to gain that knowledge and exposure to the language.
And then you pick it up and then run with it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Cool. So when you were sort of designing the flow, how did you validate that what you were doing was correct?
So for a lot of it, we kept it as close to the web app as we could in terms of the question set, and that's been validated many times over.
Sure.
But in terms of the exact wireframe, it was downloading a whole bunch of other apps and seeing how they do things. Some are better than others, but it's worth knowing, picking the best parts out of others in the market.
Okay.
Putting that together, running it through as a team. So in the team there was marketing people, UX people, and sort of landing on a common ground when it came to the add a pension journey. We had a couple of options there. Landing on language we were all comfortable with to make it as simple as we could, but also explain as much as we can. And then taking that final prototype that we've walked through here and sending it to a couple of customers that have put their hand up and said, hey, I'm really passionate about what you guys do. I'm happy to prototype some stuff.
Yeah.
And some of the feedback is amazing. Really detailed responses, slighting me for the padding, as I mentioned before, but it's it is just it's a diagram of the flow rather than exact sort of pretty design at this point.
Yeah,
but,
for sure.
It's still worthwhile having that feedback that customers are really engaged with what we're doing.
And that's what you want to be testing right now more than anything else, isn't it? It's how easy is this experience for the user. And Martin said there, of course, that he did the sort of research into the other apps there. This is exactly why you should be going on Pulse, by the way, because we have all of these experiences. You don't have to download the apps, guys. So yeah, that's how you would validate the first section and then go through and then speaking to other users.
Yeah, so very much so. When the this prototype that we've seen now, when that gets PensionBee-ified and actually looks like a PensionBee product, we'll again share it with other users and see what they feel about it.
Yeah. And
then it'll be a case of because it's kind of easier in the mobile app world to launch to an alpha group than a beta group and see how people feel about it. The concern there, well not concern rather, but the complication there is that this is existing users. They don't have any use for a sign-up journey, so it's getting their feedback, but the people have already gone through it.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's really much a case of getting out into the wild and seeing how brand and users resonate with it.
Definitely. Kind of, are there any big sort of wins and big payoffs that you think you're hoping for with this new feature? Anything specific which you think will sort of, which you're hoping will sort of help new users in a big way?
Yeah.
Apart from the push notifications, I guess.
So it's very much learning for us. As I mentioned, it's acquisition, seeing how that takes. People being able to promote ourselves, download and sign up straight away from the App Store.
Yeah.
Something we kind of can do, but can't really do because we don't have a native sign up flow.
Okay.
So how will it help users? It'll make it a better experience in the app because if you look at the current app on the pending transfers tab,
it says coming soon, right?
It says coming soon to add a pension, and the reason we haven't built that yet is because we're building it now as part of the sign-up flow. It makes sense to do it as the one because that's the key feature of the sign-up flow is adding the pension. So we'll have that for existing users now that they can add further pensions as they go along with us.
Yeah. It's good to see that sort of managing expectations as well, like not taking down a pending transfers route and actually getting disappointed. You've got to be clear and upfront with them, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
although we've had the coming soon sitting there for probably a little bit longer than a soon is valid for.
How large is a soon? That's the real question.
Exactly.
That's exactly it. And then we touched a little bit on the sort of the tech that you're using or the providers that you're using in the back end of your traditional flow. So what are you using in app? Is it similar? Are you still going to go through Onfido for sort of your checks? And you've touched on the fact that you've been using an external company to help you with building with this. So anyone else you sort of tapped up? Anyone who you think's really good that people should be using and that kind of thing? We
haven't landed on the provider just yet for the support there. So I won't name names as it were, but we will be. I've already been in touch with Onfido about the KYC journey. Yeah. They have a cool. You can actually download their app, trial app, in the App Store and actually have a play with how it would look. So ran through that journey, looked quite good. Haven't gone much further with it because we need to have that technical scoping discussion with the external provider to say how will this fit. Yeah. But they look quite nice out of the box, so we're happy to proceed with that.
And then a final video here we're going to take a look at, which is more on the kind of analytics side, so a little bit more of the detail about how the users are measuring and tracking what they're doing. Yep. There is a performance graph, which we can see here, and really lovely to be able to sort of slide along that and see two competing sort of lines or tram lines. Then into our sort of ability to make contributions here. These come via sort of like little sliding carousel tiles, and we introduce sort of a few extra bits of information there. Then we have one pension which we've not fully consolidated yet, so we can actually go about sort of correcting the wrongs which we've not sorted out there. Aegon, we've got a policy number, and then a percentage there at the top. I guess it's the same as what we touched on before about encouraging that sort of behaviour.
Yeah, so it's gamifying that journey and getting customers to provide as much information as they can.
For sure. And then this is the future world plan that you're talking about before. So real important part of your proposition is making sure that there is a really good sort of ecological standard. And here a nice sort of embedded video to showcase some of the what Legal and General are doing. Over there we have locations of assets and then sort of a reward profile, nicely sort of presented. You've sort of done a pretty good job of like keeping that all super clean. And so I wondered what the kind of the idea of the sort of the tramlined fund value and transfer and contributions area. So the one was like a yellowy line and one was a grey.
Yep.
Talk us a little bit about that specific top level metric. What sort of customer problem does that solve for you guys? And why are there two?
Well, there too. So the grey line is how much has been put into the pension. Both transfers in and contributions in. And the yellow line is what it's currently worth. So it allows customers to be able to say, okay, I've contributed X amount of pounds into my pension, and it's now worth Y or X plus whatever. And it's that seeing that it is actually a product that's meant to grow. Now, obviously, we can't guarantee that, and there will be downturns. It's inevitable, but it's having that long-term view and being able to say, okay, this is something that's long-term, and hopefully I'm seeing that yellow line outperform the grey line.
Yeah, for sure.
You also, we looked at the plan information tab, which had another yellow line, and that's providing the customer with a snapshot of how the fund has performed since that fund started. So not their personal performance of it, but how the fund holistically is performing.
Okay.
So it allows a comparison between different plans.
Yeah.
And we're really excited about actually the analytics tab. One of the projects this year will be to enhance that and reimagine how that looks. One amazing thing about the pensions as a product is that there is, and a lot of people can be eligible for this, is the tax relief from the HMRC.
Okay.
So you contribute to your pension and HMRC will actually give you more money on top, right, as an incentive to get people to engage with it and have this long-term saving product. So we want to, I mentioned the balance tab enhancements coming out this week. It's going to allow customers to be able to see that a bit more clearly, how the HMRC tax top up, as we call it, or tax relief as the official term, compares or relates to the contributions they're making. And we want to take that into the analytics tab and show customers, you've contributed this of your own money, but look how much HMRC's put on top. But here's a benefit of having pensions. Those together, how are they growing for your long-term savings plan? So there's a lot we can do with the analytics, and there's a lot to do to get customers to really engage with this as a product and long-term savings, and get them excited about it. Like I'm passionate about this HMRC stuff. It's like free money. We should be promoting this as much as we can as an industry.
100%. How do you sort of convey how long it's been taking for sort of those transfers to go over, and is there anything you can do in particular to help with that?
As in customers can do to help themselves, or?
Well, for example, that you could do as a company to help them understand exactly how long it's taking and that kind of thing.
So we do have a whole range of statuses on where the pension's tracking. So whilst we have that gauge to gamify customers providing information for the pension transfer, the actual status that relates that pension updates depending on where it's at. So it'll be stuff like we've contacted your existing provider, we've received information back from them, hey, we need you to respond on sending your original birth certificate, that kind of nonsense. Or it'll be, if it's nice and smooth, it'll be, hey, funds are on their way, funds are being invested. So the customer sees exactly what's happening to their pension every step of the way.
That's where push notification would be great for you guys.
Right, exactly. So we do email them as well, but there's a lot of email, and that's why we have that status in the Beehive too.
For sure. Cool. And the sort of the provider data, so I guess the information about Legal and General and all that kind of stuff, is that something which happens via APIs, or how do you pull that information into that?
It really is a case of what customers have told us, and it's building out that database over time based on information that we've learnt as we've gone on. Okay. So yeah, I mean, we're 4 or 5 years old now, so we have quite a robust database now, and knowing which providers look after which companies. There's no central database of this, and that's a challenge as well, because customers come to us and say, you've got my NI number, surely you can just look that up and find all my pensions.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, no, it doesn't work that way. There is no central database.
Right.
So it is a case of doing it ourselves, and we've.
It's labour intensive. That must be.
It really was at the start, and look, I wasn't part of the company at that point, so I really feel for my colleagues that have been and gone through the pain, as it were.
But it's paying off.
It's paying off now. Yeah.
So, kind of, what are you more excited about? What are you most excited about?
So yeah, app, big thing.
Yeah.
Building that out, making it really robust and a whole end-to-end journey, because. As flippant as I am about people not searching for financial products in the App Store and comparing, some do.
Yeah.
Other things is the analytics chart. Very, very excited about that. I really we want customers to really engage with this as a product, and not just PensionBee, but the industry as pensions.
Yeah.
And understanding the benefit of having those. And I mentioned the HMRC tax relief. Like, come on, contribute. You're going to get a benefit out of this long term.
Yeah, for sure.
So those are the big things. There's also the FCA is looking at how to better serve people approaching retirement. So there is a project underway for investment pathways, and it's having we've got 7 funds available on our platform because we feel we want to make it simple, and they will have sort of different ways they invest and this kind of stuff. But that's still too complicated for certain customers. So the intent is to have objectives-based investing. So you, as a customer, pick your plan based on, I want to take all my money within 5 years, retire quite soon.
Yeah.
Or I want to be invested for another 10 years or whatever it might be. And it's having plans that link to those objectives.
Okay.
So that's a cool thing that the industry is doing.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a cool challenge for us to be able to communicate it appropriately and also have the right plans in place for customers to be able to hit or pick the right objective for them and then get the appropriate fund or plan for their investment.
Very cool. So lots going on in the future. For now though, that's all we've got time for today. Thanks very much for tuning in. Stop by next week for more insights and user journeys. If you want to see a little bit more about 11FS Pulse, head over to pulse.11fs.com, where you can request a demo to talk about what we were talking about today, checking out your competition. If you've got any other questions about product or want to suggest a journey for us to include on our platform or on this show, hit us up at pulse@11fs.com or find us on Twitter @11fspulse. Martin, where can people find out more about you and PensionBee?
PensionBee.com. Me personally, LinkedIn, Twitter.
Very cool. And so we'd love to have you on again in the future at some point. We can keep following how these products are going, that kind of stuff. But for now, thanks very much, and we'll see you next week. Homescreen is a show about all things product and design, where we showcase some of the best examples of user experiences from the 11FS Pulse research platform, which includes over 2,500 user journeys from financial service products around the world.